The controls don't work. Airbus computer nightmare. The early morning sky over the Atlantic Ocean was calm, with a soft orange glow stretching across the horizon. Captain Daniel Harper, a seasoned pilot with over 20 years of experience, sat confidently in the cockpit of Flight AZ-317, an Airbus A320 en route from New York to London. Beside him, First Officer Lisa Raymond carefully monitored the flight parameters, sipping her coffee as they cruised at 35,000 feet. The aircraft was one of the latest models, boasting a fully automated flight control system. The airline had recently updated its fleet, trusting advanced software to handle most of the flying. The pilots were there as supervisors, expected to intervene only in rare emergencies. As they crossed into European airspace, everything seemed normal. Then, without warning, the autopilot disengaged with a loud chime. Autopilot disengaged? Lisa frowned, quickly scanning her instruments. Daniel reached for the side stick to take manual control, but the aircraft did not respond. A sinking feeling grew in his stomach. He pushed the throttle forward, but again, no reaction. Lisa's voice was tense. "Captain, the controls, they don't work." Daniel tried again, tilting the side stick left and right, but the aircraft did not follow his command. His fingers hovered over the overhead panel, checking for any electrical failures. All systems appeared to be operational, yet the aircraft refused to obey. "Mayday, Mayday, this is AZ-317. We have lost manual control of the aircraft. Request immediate assistance," Daniel called into the radio. The air traffic controller's response crackled through. "AZ-317, we copy. Can you clarify? Are you experiencing a full systems failure?" Lisa shook her head, her voice shaking. "Not exactly. The computers are still running, but they're ignoring us." The Airbus A320 was designed with a philosophy known as fly-by-wire. Unlike older aircraft that relied on direct mechanical linkages between the pilot's controls and the plane's control surfaces, this aircraft depended on computer systems to interpret pilot inputs. The computers had ultimate authority, capable of overriding pilot commands if they detected a potential risk. But something had gone terribly wrong. "It's like the system thinks it knows better than us," Lisa muttered. Daniel gritted his teeth. "Except it's not reacting to reality." They were now descending, though not in a normal, controlled manner. Instead, the aircraft seemed to be locked into an automated landing sequence, except there was no airport in sight, only the vast ocean below. "Check alternate control inputs," Daniel ordered, his voice tight with urgency. Lisa tried to engage direct law, a backup mode meant to restore some manual control, but the system refused. It was as if the aircraft believed there was no emergency at all. "Captain," Lisa whispered, her voice carrying a new edge of terror. "The computer, it's ignoring stall warnings." Daniel's heart pounded. Normally, if an aircraft descended too steeply, a series of alarms and automatic corrections would kick in. But now, the computer remained eerily silent, as if it had decided its course of action, and nothing would change its mind. Think, Daniel muttered. They had limited time before the plane reached the ocean. Lisa scoured the emergency manuals, flipping pages with frantic speed. There has to be a way to shut it off, force the aircraft into manual mode. Daniel suddenly remembered something from his Airbus training, a final override switch hidden beneath a safety cover. It was designed for extreme situations where the pilots needed absolute control. "I've got an idea," he said, yanking open a small panel beside his seat. His hands found the override button, shielded by a plastic cover labeled Manual Flight Mode, Emergency Only. Lisa's eyes widened. "Wait, Captain, if we do this, the plane will dump all its automatic protections. We'll be flying completely raw." Daniel hesitated for only a second. Then, with a deep breath, he flipped the switch. The aircraft jerked violently. Warnings blared across the cockpit. The once silent computer now erupted with alerts, stall warnings, altitude drop cautions, overspeed alarms. The system protested, but at last, the controls responded. Daniel grabbed the side stick, pulling up with all his strength. The nose lifted. Lisa adjusted the throttle manually. Speed stabilizing. Altitude recovering. Their descent slowed, And finally, the aircraft leveled out, just a few thousand feet above the ocean's surface. The control tower radioed in, panic evident in their voices, but Daniel and Lisa were too focused on saving their passengers to respond. After regaining control, they diverted to the nearest airport in Ireland. Upon landing, the crew was met by aviation investigators, desperate to understand what had gone wrong. In the weeks that followed, the truth emerged. A software update had introduced an unnoticed error. The aircraft's computer misinterpreted altitude data, believing the plane was at risk of stalling, even though it wasn't. As a result, the system had locked the pilots out, refusing their commands in a misguided attempt to save the flight. The aviation world was shaken. The very technology designed to make flying safer had nearly caused disaster. Captain Daniel Harper stood before a group of young trainee pilots a month later. He shared the harrowing experience, his voice filled with gravity. "This flight taught me something crucial," he said. "Technology is an incredible tool, but it should never replace human judgment. We rely too much on automation, assuming that computers can't be wrong. But what happens when the machine makes a mistake and refuses to listen?" The trainees nodded solemnly. Lisa, standing beside him, added, "Pilots are trained to fly, not just to monitor a system. If we give up control entirely, we risk forgetting how to save ourselves when the unexpected happens." The story of Flight AZ-317 became a lesson in aviation history, a warning against blind trust in automation. Because in the end, technology should assist humanity, not replace it.